Now, the other part of the question are these short stakers. Now we do see a considerable amount of short staking, and so I'll flash this up to you first to show you the difference. So these are T shares that are expiring, and what the drawdown looks like over time on PHEX. And so in 2024, we still have another 686,000 T shares on the chain that'll be expiring in this year. But you can see the kind of distribution that's here. And one of the things I'll point out is that, of course, the trend could change, but in general, T shares are deflationary because the cost of T shares go up in terms of HEX. So they are deflationary. So we'll see a trend in the downward direction. In terms of when people stake and how they stake, we've seen that the 2024 and 2025 numbers have gone up as people are anticipating either they want to get that short, the short amount of rewards that are coming in, or they want to be ready for a high in 2025. Right. So you see a little bit of jump there. Now the question is, well, what happens when these guys keep doing that? Well, here's the hidden piece. I think most understand, but here's the thing: when you end a miner, right, a HEX stake, you can't almost always, if not always. I guess the way the calculation works, it should be always. You cannot get more T shares if you go out for the same number of days and you were to stake all of your principal and all your rewards, right? And so some of these short stakers, because of the way the T share rate goes up, they might lose 2%, 5%, 10% of their T shares. All depends on the time, and we can actually look at real examples, kind of detailed, but we could do that. So their power to really offset the future T shares becomes less and less as it goes up. And so, so I think there'll be some strong effects. But what I would bring bring attention to otherwise on this is how you see in 26 and 27 we still have this gully, where we have this line down there. I guess I could probably draw on the screen, but we have this kind of like a little bit of U shape right there. That's not very bright, is it? Let me go to yellow. Anyways, you see now I'm writing all over the screen. You see how
anyway, there's a gap for a few years.
Yeah. And so we have this gap. Well, here's the thing, right? That happened, of course, we're in the beginning of HEX, right? People set up their ladders and they went into the future. That demand at that instant is very high to get more T shares. You didn't see 26, 27, 28 get filled in much. And so then after you get past the 10-year point, most of us figured, hey, if I'm going to go longer than 10, I'm going 15. Right. So now you have this other gully that's here. And so what's happening is people are not coming back and filling these in at the moment, as far as rungs go. You have some people creating new ladders and they'll come in and do that and fill them in. But you can see that there's still much less, right, in terms of T shares.
Yeah. Something else I'm kind of surprised at looking at this chart is the fact that so it would be what, 2023 or 2033 is as low as it is, only because if the 4-year cycle repeats itself, our next one would be 2029, and then the next one would be, I guess it'd be 2032.
No, it would 29 to 33, right? 4 years.
33. You're right. 33.
Yeah.
I was right. I was right the first time.
You are right.
So I'm surprised that one isn't a little bit higher. Just knowing for people to say, well, I'm going to stake it for 2 cycles, for example. I wonder if they're that maybe just uncertain if the 4-year cycle stays, or if they haven't thought about it that way quite yet. I wonder.
Well, I think when we were all running around in the beginning, like, listen, I was like, 15 years. What are you, nuts? Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was like, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do everything Quattro Seco, right? It was kind of crazy talk. But I certainly understood getting 3 times as many T-shirts.
Sure.
So that's the 10-year mark, right? So I think a lot of people had this journey.
Yeah.
And then as I learned a little bit more, I was like, oh, I get it. 15 makes sense, right? For that reason. And then you did have some people come in and of course do their ladders and fill in some of the time. But you're absolutely right. Those are pretty low numbers out there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's going to be opportunity in those years, because remember, the only people who get get the inflation are stakers.
Right. Yep, exactly. So let's talk about some of the metrics that you're seeing that are actually going up. And by all accounts, I believe average stake length is going up. Number of stakes are going, or
Yeah.
stakers are going up. And I think the number of overall wallets are also increasing.
Yeah, I mean, there's some, there's a mixed bag of information, right, with this stuff. So let me pull up, I just want to see if I have my APY on this chart, or actually not APY, but the amount. I'm going to switch to a different chart on my site real quick here. But yeah, I mean, the metrics are pretty cool. I mean, I like how they're moving along. I did some comparisons on the average stake length. So let me pull up my pulse chain charts. I had too many up here. I gotta actually think about where I have everything. We'll pull this up. I actually did this for one of the chats. I had some people asking, some clients were asking about it, about what, what we're looking at for the average. And so it's really important to talk about the average length in a way that people really understand. Okay, so I don't deny that this is bullish, but it does not show us the opportunity that's there. All right, and so why do I say that? I find it's bullish because people haven't crapped out and ended miners, but this is a measurement of open stakes. So the average staking length is a measurement of open stakes. If I made a 3-day stake and I end it, it's not here.
Right.
Right. And so you have this flurry of activity that's taking place. And what we're seeing is the residual stakes are getting longer and longer. Right. It doesn't mean that people aren't staking long term. But I think when you actually look at, and I'll pull up the other chart that I had done on this to show this. When you actually look at the comparison and what's really happening with it, I may not have it here on this one. I thought I did. I wanted to just show you the comparison chart that I had made on this. What we're seeing is that we're not getting as much staking as you would think. I may have put it in here. I should really have separated this one out so we could actually see it separately.
So
and I might have to pull it up. But what we're actually seeing with the staking is something around. You have to take my word for it for the moment, and I'll can pass it later. About on average, if you were just look at all the new stakes, and I do have the chart on this one. I'll just show it to you in a moment. But what's ending, and if it's about 2 years, 2.5, 2.5 years, some sort of a range like that. And how I can show you here, I have a much prettier one, but other people, we'll have to do that another time. But this one is stakes by start. These are all the stakes that have started in this year. Right up here at the top, these are the number of T shares that have been started in each month. Okay, so you can see, it varies. It's hard to pick out a real trend here because people are doing short and people are doing long. You can see on the daily the counts. It's kind of on a downtrend for the number of stakes. If we look at the HEX stakes by the amount of HEX, it's down. It's trending down a little bit. It's not like crazy high or low, but it's just kind of like trending around, kind of reflects what people are doing. But if you look at the average start length, it's somewhere right around here, right? So we're just above 3 years on that average, right around that level. So 2.5 to 3 years on both chain. So that's what's happening. That's what people are doing. And So if we go look at the Quattro Cincos, right? So you see this chart. This is Quattro Cinco, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we saw a good 4,760 t-shirts last month get created, Quattro Cincos. But if we look at it versus how much was actually staked last month, it was 236,000 t-shirts that were created. Just to give you an idea versus all and the longest ones. So most t-shares, vast majority, much shorter than 15 years.
Yeah.
And I do have a new request that had come in from a client to actually quantify this a little bit differently, and I'll do that. But what we're getting at is what we're hearing is true. People are short staking or holding liquid. Not as many people are putting in stakes. Kind of like, maybe it's not trending down or anything, but they're certainly not going long with it. And the result of that is huge opportunity again for the longs.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The way it works. So, all right. So this chart.
Cool.
Now you asked about adoption. So if you have any questions, ask about this while I find this other chart.
I did have a kind of a quick one, and maybe it was like in the data there, and it's just flying over my head. But like with the averages that we're seeing, like 2 to 3 years or so of stakes, is I guess the best way to ask is like, do you think it is a relatively consistent number of many people are staking for about that length, or there's a huge disparity? I mean, from what you just showed us, I think it's the latter of these two things, but that we're seeing still some hardcore 5555 still out there, and then people it's more so just widely dispersed, like really long stakes, very short stakes, and people not staking at all, rather than just kind of condensed in that a lot of people doing 2, 3, 4 year stakes or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go after the data a little bit more succinctly so we can show it. But I think you've described it correctly. If people are staking, they're tending to be very short, so you're not seeing as much of the laddering going on, or they're tending to go long. But the long is still just a spit in the bucket. The real long Quattro Cincos. And crazily, we have more t-shirts on the EX side than the PX side, about almost double. So that really is accounted for by the number of units, because those folks probably feel like, hey, this is how I feel. If it's going to survive, man, I want the most. I'm going to get the most I can and be in there and ride it out. And yes, I do realize our home is Pulse Chain, right? And Pulse Chain is really the mama here, right? I mean, EX is a side residual play at this point, but you can't discount that there's going to be huge liquidity, and is huge liquidity.
Right. You also can't discount the cheap gas fees that we've got right now either. And I'm sure that's playing a little bit of part in that as well.
Yeah, it makes you wonder just how big we were, because we pretty much picked up camp and moved to another chain.
Yeah,
the HEX community, and I think that does have a big effect. Probably not all of it, but then again, hey, listen, if you see Ethereum at 20 grand, I don't know, gas is going to be cheap. I mean, we were guessing that if we saw those kinds of numbers, you might be looking at very high end stakes, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to play it out and see. But it's definitely still part of the ecosystem. We'll watch it. Looking at the adoption chart, and we have here, again, this is just a measurement of addresses, so it's not, exactly scientific, but you can see as we get into August, we started seeing a rise in the number of addresses that have shown up on the Pulse Chain side, up to 123,000. Still below the highs, so that we had.
What was our high there? Like
around 24, almost 125,000 wallets. But it's really hard to make a conclusion just looking at that what's going on, per se, because they're just numbers of wallets that are engaged.
Right.
And I see lots of wallets for whatever reason that do very funky things, very small numbers, multiples. We also get boosted quite a bit with HSIs, depending on the HSI, because every HSI counts as its own address in this particular way this one's measured. Now, what has been going up pretty crazy, like, has been the holder chart. Let's see if it's backed off a little bit. Nope, it's up and to the right, boys.
Yes, it is.
So
Very erect.
Yeah, it's very, very green and erect.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, people are accumulating. This is something that you see both from, now again, this is addresses, so may not apply as much to market makers unless they're very sophisticated. But this is what you see with people who are doing a cycle trade, or market makers, right? You begin to take the HEX off the market and put it into wallets. Now, some of it's finding its way into LP. But yeah, I mean, this is what you would expect at this kind of time frame. With if people believe that there's going to be a chance to make money off of it, this is what they're doing. They're going to grab the HEX and hold it, and try to get capture whatever value at whatever top there is. And you see a variety of things happen on Ethereum. Ethereum looks a little funky in the number of addresses, but it generally up and to the right as well. But nowhere near the type of accumulation.
Right. But we are starting to see a trend form again. It seems like it's kind of, it was trending upwards. And then I believe that March area was where the tweet was made, right? Where where the market has decided. and now it's like, well, we're kind of starting the uptrend again. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is really beginning to kind of move in that direction.